This is huge. So the DA in the latest election polls has caught up to the ANC. So in this video, I'm going to show you what's going on there. And if you stay with me all the way till my biblical reaction, you're also going to see exactly what it will take for South Africa to prosper. You ready? Okay, let's go. Let's start by hearing the chairman of the Social Research Foundation, Frans Cronje, and what he said in January before the May 2024 elections, before any of us could have imagined the MK being in parliament.
2019, South Africa had an election. ANC got about 50% in KZN on the provincial ballot. Last year, when we polled Natal, the ANC was down to about 40% in KZN. After Zuma's entry, this is how Natal's provincial ballot is now looking. ANC, 25%. Jacob Zuma, 24%. And Inkatha, 24% as well. What it means on a national level is if those levels hold for Zuma and Natal, he will take 5 percentage points off the ANC's national tally. And polls at the moment are averaging ANC national support at, let's say, around 45%. So that number, all things being equal, and Zuma sustaining his current levels of support in Natal, that takes the ANC number down to closer to 40%. If a few other things go wrong, perhaps you actually start to see the prospect here of the ANC later this year falling into the 30 percentiles. And that is indeed, that's the game changer for South Africa's politics.
So I played that to just show you that these polls are not thumbsucks. They're quite scientific, were proven correct because the ANC got 39% in the national. So what do the polls say today? Gabriel works with Frans Cronje at the Social Research Foundation. He announces the latest bombshell on the common sense.
And there we are seeing that the ANC is at 37%, the DA at 32%, the EFF at 7%, the MK at 8%, the IFP at 6%, the PA at 4%, and then the rest with a 6% share between them.
Wait a minute, the ANC at 37%, the DA at 32%? The gap between the DA and ANC is getting smaller and smaller, with the DA catching up. This is huge for South Africa. This is what their poll shows, that Ramaphosa is South Africa's most favorite politician, but guess what? Helen Zille is South Africa's second most favorite politician. Speaking of Helen Zille, in this video right here, I recently showed her announcing the replacement for BEE policy. What do you think this historic poll reveals? Check.
Do you agree or disagree with the DA's new policy proposal? Amongst all voters, 68% agree with the policy of the DA. Amongst black voters, it's 60%, and amongst ANC voters, it's 61%. Now you look to, and then you follow that on with the next question we asked: do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Public procurement spend, in other words, government tenders for public services, should be determined by the value of the contract to the community and not the race of the service provider. 75% of all voters agree with public procurement spend based on value, not race. 70% of black voters and 72% of ANC voters agree with this. And so I think, Frans, you were completely correct in your read on the importance of the DA policy, because it is something that we've known and that you illustrated in when you talked about it, but we've known that this way of approaching empowerment and approaching procurement is the way that South Africans prefer.
The single most damning thing you could say about the lethargy in the ANC and the inability to see where the wind has been blowing politically here And it's a fatal moment for any political party when you are overtaken on ideology or policy on either your left flank or your right flank by your own supporters. And there Gabriel's given it to you now.
Wow, this is earth-shattering. So, if there was a vote today, the ANC would get 37% and the DA would get 32%. MK has lost strength, almost halved, and the EFF has lost a little bit. I guess all the internal battles don't help. And when it comes to transformation only exists in the ANC propaganda machine, no longer exists in the hearts and minds of South Africans. This is huge. It's so huge, and it ties in with something that Prince Mashele was speaking about on the Truth Report with Rob Hertzog. Listen to this.
So by the time we hit 1994, Afrikaners were no longer poor. They were now middle class and rich. So when the blacks took over, the hope was they were going to use state power to develop themselves as a group. They did not. What did they do? Instead of asking themselves, what component can we add to the economy? They didn't ask themselves that question. They said, how can we get into the white man's tent? That's when BE comes in. So the elites wanted to run into the white man's tent to be accommodated. Instead of coming up with something new, a component that they would add and say, we are proud as a nation. This is what we have added. Just like the Afrikaners added parastatals to the South African empire. So the blacks did not add anything. So if you look at the South African economy and say, over the past 30 years, what is it that black people have added? In the main, black people have been consumers. They have not been creators of wealth.
But can that needle turn? Can a new dynamic of born frees, younger black leaders, black entrepreneurs, black corporates, black businessmen say, this isn't working, let's move in another direction and make something extraordinary happen for South Africa?
It can, but you'd need a black renaissance. And that black renaissance would be very painful. I told you I study societies all over the world. The turning point, the first turning point in the non-white world, the first group to raise themselves to the level of whites in terms of development, and this group became very proud, were the Japanese. And the Japanese did that because there was an intellectual revolution within Japanese society, and it was led by a visionary elite, the Meiji Empire from 1868. They asked themselves the question, why is it that these white people are so powerful? They are so ahead of us. What is the difference between us and them? They actually sent a delegation to go to the West, to go to America, to go to Europe, and say, go and study those people. What makes them to be ahead of us? When that delegation came back, first thing said, we as Japanese must acknowledge that we are backward. That's the starting point. If you do not acknowledge that you are backward, you will never address your backwardness. That's number one. Number two, they said there is no difference between us as Japanese and white people. We are all human.
Right.
We have heads, we have brains.
So what's the difference?
The
Culture.
only difference
Is it a cultural issue?
Education. That's what the Japanese said. Simple. It's education. And the Japanese realize that it's not education in general. It's technical education, maths and science. So there was a deliberate investment by Japanese society that Japanese kids must study maths and science. And over time, Japan as a society, non-white, rose to the level of whites, to the extent that by the 70s and the 80s, Japan was the second largest economy in the world, having beaten the rest of Europe, by the way. It was America, number two was Japan.
And I remember I was living in New York at the time, and everything was the Japanese investors, and you're right.
China did the same.
Right.
Deng Xiaoping had to do a soul searching. And he said, we are backward. So the starting point, acknowledge that you are backward. 2, education, maths and science, in order to catch up with the West. Look at China today. China was backward in the 70s. Today, China is the second largest economy in the world. Let me tell you, you say I predict stuff.
Yes,
Just look, in the next 15 years, if you and I live for the next 15 years, China will be number 1 in the world. Okay, go and read the book by Kishore Mabuban.
From where?
From Singapore.
Okay.
This is the guy who worked under Lee Kuan Yew. This guy is one of the best strategists living today. The guy studies the world as China won. If you read that book, you will realize all the indicators suggest that China has almost won. The Americans are sleeping. So, black people, if black people want to turn themselves around, firstly, and I say this boldly, they must acknowledge that they're backward. Secondly, they must wake up and adopt maths and science as their national priority. Black kids must study maths and science. 3, they must deal with SATU. The South African Democratic Teachers Union is a counter-revolutionary force destroying the education of the black child. We must clear them out of the way so that you don't gamble with the future of black children. Let me tell you, if you do what I'm telling you, over time, a period of 20 to 30 years, black people will be ahead of many other groups in the world. That's how others have done. So go and study East Asia, you will see.
But you look at the American applications for business schools and law schools, primarily Asian. The Asians are outperforming in math, science, engineering. It's extraordinary how they've committed themselves to math and science.
Well. Don't go to America, and I'll come back to that. Look here in South Africa, who are the top performers? Do you know who are the top performers in math and science? It's Indians. It's Indians right here in South Africa.
Yeah.
And the Indians are a minority. They don't worry about some nonsensical, ideological stuff that people debate on a daily basis. You know what they do?
They study.
Yeah, they study. What does that do? It lifts them above the rest. Black people are busy talking about umkhonto wesizwe, a backward force. Umkhonto wesizwe, the EFF. These people are an embodiment of backwardness.
Yeah.
So we really have to start a real conversation, especially among blacks, an honest conversation. See, a guy like me, by the way, if I say what I'm saying, I know I'm going to be insulted, and I don't care. I mean, they can insult me as much as they want. I don't care.
I know the feeling.
But here's the thing, Rob. Society will move the day we look each other in the eye and tell each other the truth.
Woo! And so what does this have to do with the poll results? Because the poll results show that there's a shift in thinking. It's not about the DA itself and the ANC itself per se, but that there is a shift in thinking, and people have realized that all these slogans that they've been selling us since 1994 are not working. And even ANC members can tell. Now, here's the thing. How do we go from here to prosperity? I agree with the basic proposal that Prince Mashele is bringing here. South Africa is not a Western country trying to be African. It's also not an African country trying to be European. South Africa is a hybrid civilization. So what people are will outlast colonization, will outlast wars, will outlast any changes. And what I'm describing now will be a fact for the next 200 years or more. So first of all, South Africa operates on a software of Judeo-Christian morality. It's a fact. That's our software. We are clearly a people of right and wrong, good and bad, but at the same time, African culture. And both of these operate at the same time. So, what is African culture? In a nutshell, here's what it is. Metaphors lead to principles, right? So the way African culture operates is you get a picture first, a proposition second. Principle is embodied. In other words, truth must be dramatized. That's an African thing. 2 videos ago, I got in trouble and some of my Western friends got angry with me because they didn't understand what I was reading. I couldn't understand how they missing that, listen, this is your project, just now spoken in a way that an African mind will understand it because it's dramatized. I was thinking, why back off from it? Because they were kind of looking at it as there's an individual there and there's a situation there. But no, in African culture, truth is dramatized, so it is embodied. And African culture, of course, is Ubuntu personhood, meaning your value as a person is given to you by the community. Then you have narrative logic, which means stories are read like arguments. The reason why the comrades have had so much success with empty slogans and rhetoric, it's not because the people are dumb, but it's because in the culture, genuine arguments are made through stories and metaphors and music. African culture goes with symbols and rituals. Truth must be captured in a physical carrier. Agreement to a truth is captured in singing it and dancing to it together. That's just how we get it. I know it without explaining it. It's only when I think about it I have to explain it. But I know I get it when it happens because you just get it. It's the culture. And finally, African culture is the honor of elders, because also wisdom is embodied in elders, and so is justice. Now, in African culture, justice carried out by the elders is not for the purpose of bringing individual accountability, but it is about restoring the community. Because of Ubuntu personhood, that's why you'll hear slogans like, "We are Jacob Zuma is us," right? Nonsensical statement, but from an African mindset makes all the sense in the world. But we are a hybrid civilization in South Africa. So as much as the 85% of people in South Africa instinctively think and act like this, they at the same time instinctively think and act through a Judeo-Christian view, where revelation brings principle. Now, Judeo-Christian worldview does not say umuntu ngabantu, which means the community gives the individual value. An individual carries value because they're made in the image of God. This is where we get human rights and all of those goodies that we live by in the modern day age, but they come from Judeo-Christian values, which also Judeo-Christian values say that truth is found in text. It is written, which of course South Africans are happy for the Constitution to be protected. That's that Judeo-Christian worldview coming through, and it is a vital part of who South Africans are. So I'm saying that to say this: South Africa is 82% black, but 86% of all blacks consider themselves Christians. What does that mean? That means their moral instincts, their idea of justice, and their hopes for the future are still rooted in a biblical worldview. So I dare to say we are not a godless nation, but we are a confused nation looking for direction. So you see this here, where for Jews demand signs, which means something supernatural, and Greeks seek wisdom, meaning they're happy to just get truth through what he said. And he says, but we preach Christ crucified. So you see how different worldviews affect how people receive information. He says the only way for South Africa to succeed is by increasing education in STEM subjects. He said maths and science, but STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths. Because if you have 50% of every black community, 50% plus one person being a STEM graduate, the whole culture becomes a smart culture. When we are at 49%, it means you will have many smart black people in a backward culture. STEM get you on a path for problem solving, logic, building, and just understanding how the world works. Going from emotion to logic. Going from being a victim to a problem solver. From protest to production. From entitlement to engineering. Now, the interesting thing is, because of so many black voices that are starting to speak forth in this way, the shift is happening, and that's why you see the shift even politically. But the only way that we can hold on to this permanently and make it a part of our culture is STEM education throughout the culture. Coconuts, clever blacks, sellouts, zenza ngcono, wazi kakhulu, agent, sifundiswa, zenza umlungu. Only they will save South Africa. Now, do you realize how many Zulu words I came up with to explain how much the African culture hates intellectuals, hates those who are logical, because it's seen as you are turning against the community who gives you value. And so the comrades have been able to play this up so that they can suppress voices of common sense and reason. Those words are used to describe you as an outsider because we don't have a majority of black people being trained in STEM subjects. The moment the majority of blacks are trained in STEM subjects, you can't say someone's a clever black, because the clever black will be the norm. It's a way that you put someone down for having more wisdom than you. And of course, some of it is enabled by African culture, which says there is a threat to the community because you are saying something that may go against what the elder said. Yes, but our elders are not trained in STEM. They studied political philosophy. That is study for dumb people. We need more people studying what makes the whole culture smarter, which is science, technology, engineering, maths. So having said all of that, it's exciting to see what's happening with the polls by the Social Research Foundation, because it shows that there is a shift away from victimhood to logic, from emotion to building. Why? Because of our Judeo-Christian worldview, that seed is there, that South Africans cannot be played that far with fake BEE, because some of their Judeo-Christian worldview gets them at some point to logically look at it and say, And so ANC clearly is coming down to meet the DA coming up. So I said a whole bunch, and I hope you got what I was saying out of all of that. But my biblical reaction: by wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established. Through knowledge its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures. See how a house is built? wisdom, not emotion, through understanding, not slogans, and through knowledge, not songs, not one-liners. Its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures. So South Africa will prosper because there is a shift towards wisdom, understanding, and knowledge for the building of this country, because most South Africans do want South Africa to prosper. The politicians may lie to you and tell you that deep down, instinctively, all South Africans want redistribution. No, they actually want South Africa to prosper. And our job is to go out and just remind people of what they already believe, but they are just led astray, needing direction. So that's why I am happy to announce to you that we've had mega glitches with getting our book out, The Soft Life, 3 Simple Secrets Comrades Don't Want You to Know, which have delayed it by over 21 days. But if you check your email, we'll keep you posted because it is coming out in December. And I want to thank those of you who are helping us, and as we'll get this book in hands, 67% of our population does not live in rural areas. Only 3%, 33% does. But we have mapped out a heat map of the most susceptible to a shift areas. Areas where people tend to hustle. Areas where people get to watch others hustle, and entrepreneurs. And we're going to get these books out free, 1 million copies. And so a whole lot of people behind me right here are helping us to get us out. So please consider being part of that, because between now and 2029, the wave is already going that way, and we're just going to add a little energy to it in our little way, so that we really get a shift to policies that bring prosperity, because South Africa will prosper. Because no man can serve 2 masters, because either you love the one or hate the other, or you'll despise the one and honor the other. And you can't serve God and Karl Marx. So let's make history together. Cheers.